everyone, my name is Mariel Pikit from Group 6, and today we'll be tackling my topic, which is the measures of market power to the imperfect competition. So first, what is market power? Based on what I have searched, market power is the ability of a business to set their prices in a high level that would exist in a competitive market. So market power, it is the ability of a market to set or to influence their prices by controlling their demand or supply. So how does market power work? First is controlling supply. So if you are the firm with market power, you can control the supply of your product to keep the prices high. Next is influencing demand. By your strong brand and highly differentiated products, your company demand will be inelastic, meaning customers will still want to buy your product even if it is expensive or despite the high prices that was set. Next is price setting. When we talk about price setting, it is about to set prices. So you can set your own prices without forcing yourself to accept the prevailing prices set by the other agencies in the government or in other aspects or factors of the market structure or in the field of business. So next up, let us move on to the measures of market power. So first, there are two measures of market power, which is number one, the concentration ratio, and number two is the Herfindahl and the Hirschman index, or the HHI. So let us start with the concentration ratio. So what is concentration ratio? When we talk about concentration ratio, it is the sum of the percentage market shares of the largest firms in an industry. Basically, it measures how much of an industry's total output or sales is controlled by the largest firms, indicating whether a market is competitive or concentrated. So, a high ratio suggests a concentrated or a much concentrated market with limited competition, like an oligopoly. So, while a low ratio indicates a more competitive market with firms. For example, if firm 1 has 30%, firm 2 is 25%, and firm 3 15%, and firm 4 is 10%. So you're just gonna add those four market shares. So 30 plus 25 plus 15 plus 10 is equals to 80%. So then 80%, meaning the top four firms control over 80% of the market, which is a highly concentrated ratio. So if 40 below, that's what we called limited or low concentration ratio or highly competitive market. But when we talk about 40% high, it is high concentration ratio, which is the firm is likely an oligopoly, monopoly, or monopolistic, or belong to the monopolistic competition. So that's the concentration ratio. Now, the 1.1 and 1.2 of the concentration ratio is the four, you call that? 4 firm concentration ratio and the 8 firm concentration ratio. So when we say 4 firm concentration ratio, it is the top 4 largest firms who controlled over the market. And then if we talk about 8 firm, it is the top 8 largest firm in an industry that controls over the market. So all you have to do is to add the market shares of the largest company and then interpreting whether it is highly concentrated or low, limited, or highly competitive. So next, let us move on to the Herfindahl and Hirschman index, or the HHI. So the HHI captures the role of dominant firms. This is calculated by summing the squares of each participant's market share. It is a widely used measure of market concentration and size of firms in relation to the industry they are in and is an indicator of the amount of competition among them. So another definition of the HHI, or the Herfindahl and Hirschman index, is that it is a measure of market concentration that shows how evenly or unevenly market share is distributed among all firms in an industry. So for example, firm A has 40%, firm B has 30%, and firm C has 20%, and D has 10%. So uh, each shares, you just have to square it. So 40% squared plus 30% squared plus 20% squared and 10% squared is equals to 3,000. 3,000 HHI. So meaning it is a high HHI, interpreting that there is low competition. And whenever it is 2,500 or 1,500, if your HHI is 1,500, so meaning it is a low HHI, which means it is highly competitive. So fewer firms, smaller firms is highly competing with your product. So that's what we all know about measures of market power. Now, let us move on to um, let us move on to the imperfect competition. Now, when we say imperfect competition, it is a market competition where there are few sellers, or sellers offer differentiated products, or there are high barriers to entry leading to some control over price. So the imperfect competition, ari na masulod ang market power. So ari na siya masulod since since ang naa sa sulod ang market structure nga nasulod sa imperfect competition are more likely monopoly and oligopoly. Since ang monopoly and oligopoly are kanang mana sila ang mga large market structures, or sila na ang mga market structure nga gamay ra ang seller nya usara ang seller, which is monopoly. So how does it differentiate to perfect competition? So when we talk about perfect competition, it is perfect. Perfect. So perfect competition is a market structure where many sellers offer identical products. So ang perfect competition, nag-offer siya og pare-pareha og product. So for example, ako na maligya kog Apple, and then ang akong competitors Apple pod ang gibaligya. So pare-pareha jud sila og kana ang appearance sa product. So naagid siya highly competitive market. So mo na siya ang imperfect competition. So nature of imperfect competition is number 1, cost. Cost refers to the economic cost to society from reduced output and inflated prices. So, ang pinaka-disadvantage gyud sa imperfect competition is ang cost. Dako kayo og expenses in production. Okay, since magpa-unique man jud ka sa imong product, so kinahanglan jud siya og dako nga cost. So mao nang ang naiuban nga malugi because ilang output kay kanaang wala nagtagumpay, so mas dako ilahang cost of production kisa sa ilahang kanang profit. Next is it is the total amount a firm spends on production. So motong giingon, cost is the total amount of a firm spends on production. So next nature of imperfect competition is the barrier. The barriers of competition is any obstacles that make it difficult for new business to enter a market and compete with existing firms. So by entering imperfect competition, lisod jud siya since daghan kayo siya og mga mga disadvantages. So a lot of firms kay gipili lang mismo nga mo enter sa perfect competition kaysa sa imperfect competition. Kay when we talk about imperfect competition man, good expected na gyud na nga ang imong market structure is belong to oligopoly is whether oligopoly or monopoly. Oligopoly is mo na siya ang katong mga sellers nga dominant ra kayo, like gamay ra kayo mga sellers, and then ang monopoly siya ra gyud usa. So kanang sila duha, they are both creating unique products for the imperfect competition nga dili jud masuon sa uban nga industry. So muna nga lisod jud kayo sudlon ang imperfect competition, and there are barriers to competition kay through those unique products ma-prevent ang uban nga firm nga mosulod sa imperfect competition tungod kay dili sila kasuon sa product nga imong gi-produce. This is the strategic interaction, a business concept where a company's decision and success is affected by the decisions of its competitors and vice versa. So, muna tawagin nun a strategic interaction. It is a business concept where a company's decision and success is affected by the decisions of its competitors and vice versa. We talk about strategic interaction. It is a business concept where a company's decision and success is affected by the decisions of its competitors and vice versa. So, when firms, people, or countries make choices strategy, they think about how might others respond and try to choose the best strategy given those possible responses. So for example, if Coca-Cola lowers its price, Pepsi might lower its price too, or vice versa. So inanara siya ang strategic interaction. Next is the theory of imperfect competition, which is the industrial organization. So industrial organization, it studies how firms interact within market, analyzing how market structure affect competition, pricing, and overall economic performance. So, ang industrial organization, sila mag-analyze sa market structure nga ilang gigamit, whether nga maka-affect ba siya sa competition, pricing, and overall economic performance. So, by choosing the best market structure, naa-jay possibility nga dako kag profits. So, you have to apply the theory of industrial organization, since nag-study man siya all about how market structure affects competition, pricing, and overall economic performance. So let us move on to my last topic, which is the collusive oligopoly. So collusive oligopoly is a market structure where a few dominant firms, instead of competing, secretly or formally agree to control prices and output. So firms act together rather than against each other. They behave as if they were a single monopoly to maximize joint profits. So example, airlines alliances. So airlines coordinate routes and prices to avoid undercutting each other. So that's a wrap for my topic, and up next let's have Miss Stephanie Pedrosa to dive deeper into the next topic.